You walked out of that meeting with less than you deserved. You knew it. Your manager knew it. And in the back of your mind, you keep thinking about what you should have said, what you could have said, and why you said nothing at all. That moment, that silence, that is costing you money, respect, and your career right now. Welcome back to Shadowing English Learners. I'm Sarah, and today we are doing something different. Today is not a vocabulary list. Today is not a grammar lesson. Today we are going to practice the language of power. The exact English phrases and negotiation strategies that strong professionals use every day to speak up for themselves, close difficult conversations with confidence, and walk away from a negotiation feeling like they won. By the end of this episode, you will have a complete framework for negotiating in English. Whether you are asking for a raise, pushing back on a deadline that is too short, working with a difficult client, or speaking up in an important meeting, you will have the exact words, you will know when to use them, and you will understand why they work. Before we get to the phrases and the framework, I want to spend a few minutes on something that most English courses never talk about, and it is the real reason why so many professionals, even people who speak English well, lose negotiations before they even start. It is not because of vocabulary. It is not because of accent. It is not because of grammar. Here's where most professionals fail, and I want you to think about this carefully. They fail because of what I call the permission mindset. The permission mindset is a belief, and most people do not even know they have it, that you need someone else to say yes before you can state your position. It shows up in language like this. I was just wondering if maybe. I'm sorry to bring this up, but. Now, I am not saying you should be aggressive. Being aggressive in a negotiation is not helpful. But there is a big difference between being polite and being invisible. Many professionals, especially people who come from cultures where showing respect to authority is very important, use language that shows weakness instead of confidence. In American and international companies, the expectation is not that you will be aggressive. The expectation is that you will be clear, direct, ready, and calm. Think about the last time you were in a difficult conversation at work. What did your body do? What did your voice do? Most people start speaking more quietly. Their sentences get longer. They say sorry before they make a request, and then they accept the first answer they get, even when that answer is no. Today we are going to change that completely. Let me show you something powerful, a simple way of thinking that changes everything. Instead of going into a negotiation thinking, I hope they say yes, I want you to go in thinking, I am here to find a good answer together. That small change, from hoping to working together, changes your words, your body, and your energy in a way the other person can feel right away. Now, this is important. Negotiation in English in a professional setting is not a fight. It is a planned conversation with a goal at the end. And the people who do well in these conversations are not always smarter or more powerful. They are simply more ready and more careful with their words. Let's build those skills right now. Every successful business negotiation in English follows 3 clear steps. I call them anchor, explore, and close. Understanding why each step works is just as important as knowing what to say. So let me walk you through all three carefully. Step 1. Anchor. An anchor means you say your position clearly, with confidence, and early in the conversation. The mistake most people make is waiting. They wait for the other person to speak first. They wait to hear the offer. They respond instead of leading. And when you respond first, you are already in a weaker position. The anchor does two things at the same time. It says what you want, and it gives a reason for wanting it. That reason is not extra decoration. It is part of the strategy. It tells the other person that you thought about this carefully, that you are not asking because of feelings, and that your position makes sense. Here's what a strong anchor sounds like when talking about salary. Based on my research and the work I have done in this role, I am looking for a base salary of $95,000. And here's what it sounds like for a project. Given everything this project requires, we would need 3 more weeks to deliver good quality work. Notice that both anchors start with a reason, based on my research, given everything this project requires. These opening words show the other person that you are prepared. They make it easier for the other person to take you seriously from the very first sentence. Now, here is something very important about the anchor. After you say it, stop talking. Do not add more words. Do not change your position before the other person has even responded. Say your anchor clearly, and then wait. The person who talks first after an anchor is almost always the one who gives something away. Let the silence work for you. Here's a question for you. In your last important conversation at work, did you state your position clearly, or did you wait for the other person to go first? Think about that for a moment, because your answer tells you a lot about where your negotiation skills are right now. Step 2. Explore. After you say your position, the other person will respond. They may say no. They may offer less. They may push back. Your job in the explore step is not to panic and not to give up right away. Your job is to ask questions. Very few people do this well. When someone says no or offers less than you wanted, most people either fight back or give up. A good negotiator does neither. They get curious. They ask questions to get information, to buy time, and to show that they want to work together, not just push for what they want. Here are the main explore phrases. Listen carefully to why each one works. Help me understand your thinking on that. This phrase works because it is not a fight. It is an invitation. You are asking the other person to explain their position. This gives you real information, and it makes the other person feel heard. People who feel heard are much more likely to move toward agreement. This is one of the most useful sentences in business English. It moves the conversation away from disagreement and toward finding a solution. It shows that you are not leaving. You are looking for a way forward together. And it puts the job of finding that way on both people, not just you. Is the timeline the main problem here, or is there something else? This question helps you find the real issue. In many negotiations, the first objection is not the real objection. There is something deeper, a budget problem, a team issue, a concern the other person has not said clearly. This question opens that door without making the other person feel like they are being pushed. Walk me through how you arrived at that number. Use this when you get an offer that seems too low or a budget that seems too small. It is not aggressive. It is professional. And the answer will almost always give you something. A limit, a priority, a place where there is more room that you can use. When was the last time you asked any of these questions in a difficult conversation at work? Most people never ask them. They either accept what they hear or they react with emotion. These 4 questions give you a third option, one that is calm, planned, and much more effective. Step 3, close. The close is where the agreement happens, or where you set a clear next step. Many negotiations fail not because 2 people could not agree, but because nobody said clearly what they agreed to. The conversation ends without a real finish, and then confusion and problems come later. The close step has 2 jobs. First, it confirms exactly what was agreed. Second, it says who does what and by when. The professional who does the close is always seen as the most organized and most trustworthy person in the conversation, and that matters a lot for your long-term reputation. Here's what a clean close sounds like. So just to make sure we are on the same page, you will approve the budget by the end of this week, and we will deliver the first part by the 15th. Does that work for you? And a more formal version for senior conversations. Thank you for your time today. Let me write a short summary of what we agreed and send it to you this afternoon. Both of these closes do the same thing. They end the uncertainty. They give everyone in the room a clear picture of what happens next. And they put you in the position of the person who brought order and clarity to the conversation. That is always a good position to be in. Anchor, explore, close. Those 3 steps are your map for every professional negotiation from this point. Know which step you are in at every moment and move through each one with a clear plan. Here's where most professionals fail at the most important moment, when someone says no or when they feel pressure from the other side. They either go completely quiet or they say sorry and give up right away. Both of these responses hurt your position and show the other person that you were not serious. There is a middle way. I call it confident acknowledgement. It means you hear what the other person says, you show that you understand, and then you hold your position or offer another option, without being aggressive, without saying sorry, and without going quiet. Confident acknowledgement always follows the same structure. Show you understand first, then move the conversation forward. You never go straight to disagreement. You build a bridge between their position and yours, and then you walk across it calmly. Here are the main phrases. I hear you, and I want to make sure we find something that works for both of us. I understand that is not what you were expecting. Let me explain my thinking. I appreciate you saying that. That said, I want to look at the numbers again because I think there is a gap between the work and what has been offered. That is a fair point. Here is how I would approach it. Look at the structure of every one of those phrases. Understand first, bridge, then move forward. Every time. That structure is not an accident. It is the way professional persuasion works. Now I want to talk about one small word that quietly hurts negotiations, and most people use it without knowing the damage it causes. That word is but. Listen to these 2 sentences. I understand your concern, but here is what I would suggest. Compared to, I understand your concern, and here is what I would suggest. The first sentence signals a fight is coming. The moment the other person hears but, they know you are about to disagree, and they start to defend their position before you have even finished talking. The second sentence, using and, keeps the conversation open. It feels like working together. It moves forward instead of pushing back. This is a small change, one word, but the effect on how people hear your message is very big. Start replacing but with and or that said in your professional conversations this week, and notice how differently people respond to you. Here is your practice moment. Think of one time recently when someone at work said no to you or gave you less than you wanted. How did you respond? Now think about how you would respond using confident acknowledgement. What would you say? Pause for a moment and think about that, because the answer will tell you exactly which muscle you need to build. I want to be honest with you here, and I want you to be honest with yourself as we go through these. Because most professionals make at least 2 or 3 of these mistakes on a regular basis. Seeing them clearly is the first step to stopping them. Mistake 1, saying sorry before you ask for something. Saying, "I'm sorry to bring this up," or "I'm sorry to bother you" before a negotiation tells the other person that you think your request is a problem. It puts your position in a weak place before you have even started. Remove the sorry completely. Instead, open with something warm. "Thank you for making time for this." That is friendly, that is professional, and it does not put you at a disadvantage before the conversation has even begun. Mistake 2, using weak language that makes your position smaller. Phrases like, "I was just thinking," "maybe we could possibly consider," or "I don't know if this makes sense, but." These show that you are not sure about what you are saying. Even if your idea is very good, the words you use to introduce it change how the other person hears it. Replace weak language with clear, confident framing. "I would like to suggest something," or "here is what I recommend." The idea stays the same. The way it lands changes completely. Mistake 3, accepting the first no. In most professional negotiations, the first no is not a final answer. It is a starting point. The other person is often waiting for you to respond, to ask a question, to offer another option, to give more information. When you accept the first no without saying anything, you leave value behind and show the other person that your first position was not serious. The right response to no is almost always a question. "Help me understand what is driving that decision." Or, "Is there a version of this that would work for you?" Those 2 questions alone can completely change where a conversation goes. Now here's a question for you. Have you ever accepted a first no and later thought you should have said more? Most people have. And the good news is that from this point forward, you have the exact questions to use instead. Write them down. Keep them somewhere you can see them before your next important conversation. Mistake 4, not summarizing the agreement at the end. A negotiation without a clear close is not a finished negotiation. How many times have you left a meeting thinking you had an agreement, only to find out later that the other person remembered something completely different? The close, the summary, the confirmation, the next steps is not an extra step. It is the most important step. And the professional who does it every time builds a strong reputation for being clear, organized, and trustworthy. Mistake 5, negotiating against yourself. This is the most hidden mistake. and it is one of the most costly. You go into the conversation with a clear position. Before the other person has even said anything, you start to change it. Of course, I understand if that is too high. I am flexible. A lower number would also work for me. You just negotiated against yourself, and the other person said nothing. They did not push back. You gave ground simply because the silence felt uncomfortable. Say your position. Then stop talking. Let the silence do its work. Silence after an anchor is not awkward. It is professional. It shows that you mean what you said and that you are waiting for a real response. That kind of calm is rare in a negotiation room, and it is always noticed. Think about which of these 5 mistakes you make most often. Just one. Name it to yourself right now, because knowing your main pattern is the first step to changing it. Now let me give you a set of more advanced phrases, the kind of language that shows everyone in the room that you are a senior strategic professional. These phrases go beyond the basics. They raise your presence in a conversation, and they change how decision makers see you over time. For starting the conversation with a strong frame, I want to make sure we have a good conversation today. I have come prepared, and I would like to go through a few things. This opening shows 2 things right away: that you are organized and that you plan to lead the structure of the conversation. It is quiet confidence. It does not say it loudly. It simply creates a direction that the other person naturally follows. For saying your position clearly without sounding closed, I have thought about this a lot, and my position is clear. That said, I genuinely want to understand your point of view. This phrase shows strength and openness at the same time. You are not easy to push over, but you are also not closed. That combination, confidence without being rigid, is exactly what earns respect in a negotiation. 4, bringing the conversation back when it goes off track. Can I bring us back to the main question here? Which is, use this when a negotiation starts to move into side topics, or when emotions start to rise. It is calm. It is professional. And it puts you in the position of the person who keeps things focused, which is always a position of quiet leadership. For buying time when you need to think, that is worth thinking about carefully. Can I take one day and come back to you with a clear answer? This phrase is used less than it should be, and it works very well. It shows that you take the conversation seriously enough not to respond too fast. In important professional settings, the person who asks for time to think is seen as more serious and more reliable than the person who reacts immediately. For saying you disagree without creating a fight, I see this differently, and I think it is worth taking a moment to understand why. This phrase does not ignore what the other person said. It simply creates space for your view. And the words, "I think it is worth taking a moment," ask the other person to slow down, which almost always helps the person who is more prepared. Here is a question for you. Which one of those 5 phrases could you use in a conversation you have coming up this week? Think about a specific meeting or discussion. Choose one phrase and decide right now that you will use it. The move from learning to using is the most important move you can make. For closing with confidence, I think we made real progress today. Here is how I would summarize what we agreed to. This close is confident without being too strong. It says the conversation was good, and it puts you in the position of the person who brings clarity, which is a role that strong professionals take in every room they enter. For moments when a negotiation stops moving, it seems like we are both at a stopping point on this specific issue. What if we put it to one side for now and work through the other points first? Sometimes solving the smaller things changes the picture on the bigger one. Strong negotiators use this approach all the time. When a conversation gets stuck on one hard point, they move to areas where both sides can agree first. They build positive movement. They build goodwill. And then they come back to the hard point when the feeling in the room is better. This is not avoiding the problem. It is being smart about the order in which you solve things. Let me give you a clear picture of how everything we talked about today works together in one negotiation. You start with your anchor, a clear statement of your position, with a reason behind it. You say it calmly, and then you stop talking. When the other person responds, whether they agree, seem unsure, or push back, you move into the explore step. You ask one of your 4 questions. You listen carefully. You get information. You do not react with emotion. Once you understand their position more clearly, you respond with confident acknowledgement. You show that you heard them. You use and or that said instead of but. And then you move forward, either staying with your original position and giving more reasons, or offering a new option that helps both sides move ahead. And when the conversation reaches a natural end, whether you have a full agreement or a clear next step, you close. You give a clear summary. You confirm who does what and by when. And you end the conversation as the person who made everything clear. That sequence, anchor, explore, confident acknowledgement, close, is your complete framework. It works in salary conversations. It works with clients. It works with your manager, your team, and your colleagues. It works in any professional setting where 2 or more people need to reach an agreement and where the words you choose decide the result you get. The difference between the professionals who move forward in their careers and the ones who stay exactly where they are is not always skill or experience. Very often, it is preparation and word choice in the moments that matter most. And those moments are almost always negotiation moments. Here is your challenge for this week, and I want you to take this seriously, because this is where the real learning happens. Reading and listening is not enough. You have to use these skills in a real situation. Choose one situation in your professional life right now, a salary conversation you have been putting off, a deadline that was set without asking you, a project that keeps getting bigger without more pay, a conversation with a client or manager that you have been avoiding because you didn't know what to say. Write 3 sentences. Your anchor, your clear position with a reason behind it. Your explore question, the question you will ask when they respond. And your close, how you will summarize the result and set the next step. Write those 3 sentences. Say them out loud at least 5 times. You do not need to wait for the perfect moment. The professionals who move forward are the ones who create those moments, who ask for the meeting, prepare the words, and walk in ready. That is the only real difference between staying where you are and moving forward. Let's close with a clear summary of everything we covered today. Lesson 1. Every professional negotiation has 3 steps: anchor, explore, and close. Know which step you are in at every moment and move through each one with a clear plan. Lesson 2. Your anchor must start with a reason, based on my research, given the scope of this project. According to the data, your position must feel logical and prepared, not emotional or reactive. Lesson 3. When someone pushes back, ask a question before you respond. Explore before you react. Help me understand your thinking on that. What would it take to make this work? These questions give you information, buy you time, and keep the conversation moving forward together. Lesson 4. Replace but with and or that said. Show you understand before you move forward. And stop saying sorry before you make a request. Small word changes produce big results in professional relationships over time. Lesson 5. Always close with a clear summary and specific next steps. Be the person who makes sure everyone leaves the conversation knowing exactly what happens next. That person is always seen as the most capable and trustworthy professional in the room. Anchor, explore, close, ask more than you argue. If you worked through this episode seriously, if you identified your challenge situation, wrote your 3 sentences, and made a plan to have that conversation, you are already ahead of most professionals in any room you walk into. Not because you have more experience, because you are more prepared. And being prepared is always a choice. In the next episode, we are going to go even deeper. We are going to practice the specific language for performance reviews and self-advocacy conversations. How do you talk about your own results without sounding arrogant? How do you respond when feedback feels unfair? How do you position yourself for a promotion in a direct conversation with your manager? We are going to break down those exact conversations with the same level of care and detail that we use today. If that conversation matters to you, and if you are serious about your career in English-speaking professional environments, make sure you don't miss it. I'm Sarah. Thank you for spending this time with me. Now go practice. The conversation you have been avoiding is waiting for you.